Hey everyone, so today we're going to be looking at patch 9.16, which is coming in about a week's time next Wednesday. There are quite a lot of buffs and nerfs in here, and they're buffing a lot of tanks, which might not be as good, but they're nerfing a lot of the kind of strong meta champions that we have. Also, Kale and Aurelion Sol, by the way, are due mini reworks. You might have seen these already, but those aren't coming in 9.16. We're going to wait for those until 9.17. I'll do a separate video about what to expect for those this week, I think. Kale has changed again as well, and they're both pretty interesting. We're going to look at the nerfs to start with, and the first couple we have are to AD carries. So Ezreal, his QAP ratio has been halved to 15%. His E cooldown is also up to 25 to 13 now from 19 to 13, so 6 seconds higher rank 1. The better build for Ezreal right now is going for your Manamune, your Iceborne, and then into Ludens and into Gunblade. So basically turning him from AD into AP. That is why they're lowering the QAP ratio, and it's actually quite a big chunk, especially when you're going to have both of those together. It's about roughly 200 AP, just a little bit less. The other AD carry nerf we have is to Sivir, just the one though. So W total AD ratio lowered to 30 to 70% from 50 to 70%. So total AD, by the way, means that it's from everything. So 20% is actually pretty big. Like this is your base, this is items, this is everything together. Again, you max it second though, so it'll get back to normal at like 3 items roughly, and that is when you do have more AD anyway. So it is going to kind of even out. Lane phase is definitely gonna be worse though. So like your poke is gonna be worse, your wave clear is gonna be worse as well. You can't just send this down the line and like push the wave as easily, especially after Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge as your first couple of items. Losing 20% from that is definitely going to suck, and you're going to want to still max your Q first anyway, so there isn't a way to get around it. One of the bigger nerfs we have though that I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about, especially if you play top lane, is to Riven. Her Q cooldown is now always going to be 12 seconds from 12 to 10. It is a lot of your damage, especially early, but it's also some of her mobility as well, right? So it is again hitting both of those. It should make her easier to chase down if you're trying to gank her or like just kill her anyway, but also easier to fight. There's like a bigger window. So like after she uses her Q, she can't really fight back that easily because she has to wait longer for it now, especially before any cooldown reduction. She's really going to notice it. Yuumi is another big nerf that we have, and it's kind of all around her Q. So the empower damage, like after a second of flying and stuff, that's been lowered to 50 to 225 from 50 to 275. The slow is going to be half as good, so it is way worse in the lane phase, but the damage is the other way around, right? Same in lane, but when you max it out, you miss 50 damage now. If you go back to lane phase, it starts at the high cooldown, so technically you can't use it as often. Damage would be lower overall anyway because you can't use it as much, but actually it slows for longer earlier and less late game. It's kind of all over the place, but like lane phase should be weaker now, especially in terms of poking with the guided Q, but as you max it out mid game, you're going to have good utility with it, but just less damage. The only other support getting nerfed is Tahm Kench, which is aimed at pro play, so that's why it seems kind of weird. He's kind of like the anti-fun champion to kind of deny plays. Your E shield duration has been lowered to 2 seconds from 3 seconds, and base move speed lowered by 10. It's easier to wait out his shield and then just turn around and kill him. That's kind of the idea, and losing a second is actually quite a lot of time really. You're not going to be as safe with the move speed, but I think mostly it's a 1 aimed at pro play and 2 it's aimed at the shield. Actually, a lot of these that we're going to look at now are aimed at pro play. Like I said, Juani we see a little bit in solo queue, but not a ton, and her Q cooldown has been increased to 20 to 12 from 17 to 11. The 3 seconds more on Q rank 1 is going to be a big nerf to a gank's mobility size. Like if you get caught invading, for example, there's less chance that it'll be up to escape again, so it is definitely an early nerf. Also, we have an early nerf to our resistances from a passive, so it's half as good base but 10% more bonus, which you won't have that much of early. Bonus is stuff from items, it's stuff from runes, so as you get through the game, it's going to work out better, and that's great, but early mid game, it'll be easier to do damage through a passive and actually kill her. Sylas is their other jungler. He's played a bit more in solo queue actually. Like he kind of exploded into a jungler after they changed a bunch of stuff around like his shield, but actually played more as a mid laner now anyway again, so I'm not really too sure. So the change is his Q explosion deals 55% reduced damage to monsters now. That wasn't there before, it was just reduced to minions. This will definitely screw his clear speed up, right? Like if you think about it, you almost need to use it twice now to get the same damage on the explosion as before. The reason that sucks as well especially is just because he's a mage, right? He needs to kill stuff quickly or he's going to take quite a lot of damage, especially with the shield now only being magic, and this will for sure hurt his clear speed and his ganking after. Last couple of nerfs up, we have like really major ones for pro play, honestly. Like Azir's Q cooldown increased to 15 to 7 from 15 to 5. It is making him less safe. This is a way he's going to escape with his shield and less obnoxious, like mid to late game. It's kind of more of a choice, I guess, where you send them in or where you send them to escape and run away. It's also harder to reposition them now. Technically, the damage is actually the same, but it's making it more punishing to mess up or misposition or misplay. Last up, we have a nerf to Corki. So base AD lowered by 4 and AD per level lowered by 0.5. So these changes always get memed, but like base AD is kind of a rough stat to lose for an auto-attacking champion like an AD carry. Doran's Blade has 8 AD, remember. So this is half of that you're going to lose at the very start of the game. It's going to be harder to CS and harder to poke as well. You're even going to lose more as you go throughout the game as well. So you're kind of weakening that point where he spikes at 2 items really hard with like Trinity and IE or Rapid Fire. We're going to move into our buffs now, and there are loads of champions that are a little bit underplayed here, getting a buff to kind of bring them into the meta. Fiora is a good example of this. Like, she's not too bad right now anyway if you can get to 2 items. Like, getting Trinity Force is so insane. It should be a bit easier in the lane phase. You can use your E a bit more, so that's going to be your attack speed. It's going to be a slow. It's going to be a crit as well, which is a big way, like, if you actually want to extend trades and go for a kill. It's also going to scale up. The attack speed goes up to almost double as you put points into it, and you max that out second as well. So basically, at 2 items, you are now way stronger with even more attack speed. Next up, Cassian's W damage is up to 70 to 170 from 40 to 140. There's an extra 30 damage on there at every single rank, which is nice, especially if you're all in early or use it for cannons, I guess, if you want to guarantee that. It's not exactly a huge part of his damage output early, but it makes the all-ins easier to win, which is quite important. Like, when that shift happens, that's when Cassian is really dangerous. I also think it's pretty dangerous to buff a hyper-scaling late game champion's early damage, but you'll probably mostly notice it like after 6 and after 11 when you start to really fight properly. It's actually kind of the same thing with Jax, but this time they're making him more slippery and able to fight a little bit more and engage. So Jax's Q cooldown is going to go down to 8 to 6 now from 10 to 6. So it's 2 seconds lower rank 1. You can't do much without your Q, right? It sets up most of your Counter-Strike plays, your combo most of the time as well if you want to dive in and actually fight somebody. It makes it harder to chase him as well, but especially after Spear of Shoji, and this is kind of what I'm worried about. It's going to be even better now with that, right? It's a flat 20% on there anyway, but he'll be hopping all over the place once you activate your ultimate. They're actually also buffing Syndra again. This time it's a little bit bigger though. So a Q Transcendent bonus damage increased to 25% from 15%, and an E damage is going to be up 15 every single rank. So this Transcendence thing is your passive. It's the thing that starts when you have the spell at maximum rank. So at level 9, your Qs do more damage basically. 25% is actually quite a lot, especially if you're going to be ahead and you have some items as well, right? Because it obviously scales with those. But she seems to fall off a little bit too hard mid-game right now if you can't get enough of those items. Syndra is like purely a check of do you have enough damage to kill somebody with your ultimate or not. But at least if you hit your Q first, it's going to be more likely now, right? And there is also 15 more damage on your stun as well. Next up is a pretty good one as well, actually, because I looked into this a little bit more. So Lux support, her W shield is going to go up to 50 to 150 from 50 to 110. So Lux support was kind of beaten into the ground recently, especially as support, better as a mid laner now, but she's still doing okay, just not like as amazing as before. As I was looking into this, there are actually people who rush Athenes and Sensor and they max their W first to play it more like a shield and kind of a buffer. It's 40 more shield, but remember that is another 40 on the way back as well, and they can stack together, so it's actually pretty big. If you're playing Aftershock with that buffing setup as well, like a sensor and stuff, this is actually a pretty good buff, I think, and a pretty good change. We're going to move on to Ziggs next, and this is a little bit stranger. So his WAP ratio is up 15% to 50%, and the cooldown has been lowered to 20 to 12 from 24 to 12. Ultimate cooldown also lowered as well by 20 seconds at rank 3, but the W thing is the only mobility in his kit, right? It means he's harder to gank now, or I guess as well, you could use it more often to push somebody into a minefield and all in a bit more. You can also use your ultimate more later as well, so it's pretty guaranteed to be up every single fight at least, and you can use it more to clear side waves if you wanted to do that. We're going to move into a couple of tank buffs now. So Mundo's W tenacity increased from 10 to 30% to 30% all ranks, and his E cooldown now scales down to 4 seconds. While your W is active, you basically have a free Merc Treads now in his kit, which is pretty insane, I think, and it makes him so much harder to catch or get away from him. You do normally max your E second as well, so this is a mid-game like 2 to 3 item buffs, and this is actually a lot of extra damage. It deals 5% of his maximum health and gives him a minimum of 100 AD for the next auto and a maximum of 200. It's also an auto attack reset, so it is actually a lot of damage. Using that every like 2 seconds with cooldown reduction seems pretty nuts to me. Sans 1 is a little bit smaller. His Q minimum damage up 10, maximum damage up 20, rank 5, same rank 1, and it deals full damage now to monsters from 80% before. Full damage versus monsters might help him cheese buffs and jungle camps at the start of a game a bit easier. That's the only real thing that I can think like why they would do that. When he was really popular earlier in this season, they nerfed him by reducing his minimum Q damage by 10, so that is a revert there, and you get a bit more extra damage now with the rank 5 and dealing that full damage to monsters. Another one that is a little bit better than that is Tu Shen. His Q maximum health damage is up 1% at every single rank, and his E damage is up 20 at every single rank. The damage part of his Q is from the empowered autos, by the way, after you use your Q and it comes back. So you get 3 autos, that is an extra 3% damage, I guess, or a total of 15 to 21% depending on the rank. So it's kind of like 20% of somebody's health bar just goes in 3 hits once you've maxed out your Q. Between the 2 buffs, it should make Shen more deadly. As weird as that sounds, because he is a tank, like he might pick up some more kills early in lane, especially if he builds a Titanic Hydra. The last time we're looking at today, though, is Singe. I know he's kind of like an AP champion as well, but his base mana is up 40 to 330, and his ultimate bonus stats is going to be up 10 rank 3. The extra mana is probably going to be used for a fling or for more poison, right? It's about half a fling or 3 seconds of poison, so I guess technically it's a potential of 120 more damage in early fights if you would have run out of mana before. It might just let you stay in lane longer though and just like farm a bit more and stuff, so it's definitely going to help him early at least. Nocturne is also getting a buff this patch though. His armor is up a whopping 2 to 38, and his W attack speed up 10% now to 30 to 50%. It should mean healthier ganks or duels as well if you find somebody else, especially if you can block a spell and proc the attack speed from your W, which is now 30% early, rank 1 for 5 seconds. It might not seem like a lot, but Ezreal gives you 15% and a rapid fire cannon gives you 30%. So that's actually a lot of attack speed for those 5 seconds. Last up, we're going to have a couple of mid lane changes. So I think Riot are a little bit afraid of buffing LeBlanc too much. Last patch, you got 10 to 50 more damage on her chains. Patch before that was True Sight on her chains. And now you're getting 10% more AP on your Q. Even though you max your W, it doesn't matter what rank your Q is going to be because it's just an AP ratio. They're exactly the same at every single rank. You can have your W max and your Q rank 1, and this will still do 10% more with the AP ratio. Technically, in a normal combo, it's going to be 20% more used, right? The first one and then the Mark proc afterwards as well, which is pretty good once you start hitting 2 to 3 items. Last up, we have buffs to Echo. So his E bonus damage up 10. It's going to be 50 to 150 now. His ultimate cooldown lowered by 20 seconds, rank 3. It's making him able to all in just a little bit more with a bit more E damage, but the ultimate cooldown means you'll be able to use it more to fish for kills. A normal build as well is like 20% cooldown reduction, right? 10 from Protobelt, 10 from Zhonya's. So every 40 seconds, he can look to dive in and snipe someone and kill them, and then ultimate out afterwards. So it should make him a more viable assassin. So that's the last change. That is going to be what the patch looks like in 9.16. Let me know what you think of all the changes together. Thank you for watching until the very end of the video. And for now, I will leave you with the robots.